Fes Gamach Arden. Falcher of Kuna Fanala Shot and Session of Shot, Shiny Floors and Formats. It's Mission Niall and Donloch, I guess. I mean, also tell us you be called it. It's Mila Tang, Katiana, I guess, Kath, Onatius, and Kuruk Hartgaw. Warm welcome to you all to this session, Shiny Floors and Formats. My name is Niall Macdonald, and I'm very happy to be here, very excited, and many thanks to the festival for inviting me along. Hopefully, you won't be hearing too much from me because we've got our 4 experts here who will be giving their wisdom and their opinions on the subject. I'll just go over what we hope to achieve here, and I can't write it any better than how it was put in the programme. Sounds lazy, but just go with this. So, with a high-profile return of entertainment staples like Gladiators, The Weakest Link, and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the Shiny Floor format has firmly reclaimed its place at the centre of prime time. But beyond the revivals, where is factual entertainment heading next? So in this session, we're hoping to take a look at how formats are being refreshed for modern audiences, where the next generation of returnable hits might come from, and also explore, and this is quite interesting, the balance between nostalgia and innovation. Also the global marketplace for formats and the enduring appeal of scalable audience-friendly entertainment. And maybe ask and perhaps answer the question, are we entering a new global age of shiny floor shows or simply rediscovering what already works? We're going to try and do that in 45 minutes. Remember, there'll be a chance to ask questions at the end, so please, if there's anything that kind of you want to ask, you'll get a chance to do that. I've got 2 challenges. One challenge is actually reading my own handwriting on my crib sheet, which I did this morning. And also, I foolishly took part in the Tato Taste Crisp Challenge earlier on. So if you see me doing this, I'm still finding crisps here and there. Anyway, enough from me. Let's hear from our contestants, as we're going to call them. I'm going to get introduce them themselves, because who better to do that? And also, some of them will have a clip, examples of the work. So I think, Darren, we'll start with you, sir.
Okay. I'm Darren Smith. I'm the MD of Kite Entertainment. I don't have a clip, but we make shows like Gogglebox Ireland, Traitors Ireland, The Assembly Ireland, and then we make Ireland's Fiddles Family, some kids stuff, and a few documentaries here and there.
Great, we'll be hearing more from you. Also, a big fan of the strapline on your website, which said, attempting to turn ideas into invoices since 2004, which I think most people can identify with. Many thanks. Also, we're going to hear from Rebecca.
So, Gurmagat is Misha Rebecca Speer, August is Lairhor, August Jorhor Mail at Tyrone Productions. So, I'm a producer and director with Tyrone Productions. And the reason I'm part of the panel is I also exec the Irish version of On Desh, which is a Welsh format, which Ffion will be speaking about also. And I am heading into a Belgian format for TG Gahar later in the year, which is another Irish language format. Yeah.
And I think we've got a clip of On Desh, which we can watch just now.
We should do of On Desh.
Darug a sé bon a trí. Oh, right. Tá sib héis titim a musca bónis. Déitach sib neamhord umláni an ró.
Oh, déitach.
Agus chuile reis ceiste agart. No, ja, gon mé darigad tá a manc fólín agus áine a hortlib.
Seans go dhéanamid sin?
Oh, yeah, no, sciobh tá mar.
Yeah, sciobh. Right, tá siad gola goid, agus ní le í norm, bhfuil siad gola goid.
Ní norm sacard.
Fólín agus áine, ráchéad 60 euro fanta mar gur chuid siad le agus cuán agus móví. Se bit dionna harcíon a lo, ag 308 is a euro. Célín te sin, bhfuil sibse go le raigetí bauta sí, agus fólín is áine farir, muid fágas slán lipse, agus mór go darigid. Gur míle mágaí.
Gur mágaí.
Bhí se harcíon sib bhelín.
Gur míle mágaí. Gur mágaí.
Ag speice muid sibse, I mauta trí.
What happened there was the girls had put in so much work, built up their bank, and the boys landed on a steel square, so knocked them out of the game. Now, Mariol goil down na gailge cobiog viahna chéile, so they knew each other. The girls were so not happy and just couldn't hide it on screen. We were like, but another one on that steel in that first series was there was an Irish pair who decided not to steal. Did you hear the story? No. That we had a steal and on their morals they decided not to steal. They were knocked out. bizarre. So shiny floor can be unpredictable.
Well, that's it, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about Indaish and Idaish. Also to yourself, Kieran.
Yep, I'm Kieran Doherty. I'd love to introduce myself in Irish, but all I can remember is the Hail Mary, and that's it. So I'm just going to stick with English. I'm co-founder and joint MD of Scalable Media, and we make formats like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Millionaire Hot Seat, and Blind Date, things like that. So game shows and formats.
And I think we've got a clip as well.
Our most recent one, Do You Know Your Place, which is our most recent studio show.
The most popular place for Brits to go on holiday, well, it isn't Florida. It isn't the south of France. It isn't Benidorm. In fact, it's right here in the UK. But how well do we know our own country?
Well, that's what we're here to find out with the help of Paul, our somewhat unreliable tour guide who'll be taking us all over the UK, finding out what makes it so great.
Now, most of his astonishing facts will be accurate.
In the 18th century, cider was used as a form of currency.
Some others, not so much.
What theatre?
Yes.
It'll be up to the celebrities to decide which are genuine and which are devious deceits.
It is the right answer. I'm sweating.
So who will decipher fact from fiction?
Wow!
Turnip cake.
Oh.
Who will outsmart their fellow celebrities?
Remy's won another yes! How well do you know your place? It's out on the Beeb and it's pretty spectacular.
Very shiny floor as well. Very shiny floor. Finally, but not least, Ffion.
Helo, Ffion ydw i, cyfarwyddwr creadigol gyda Slam Media a cynhyrchydd cyfres y Deis. Ac o'n i'n rhan o'r datblygu o'r cychwyn cyntaf i'r sgrin. My name's Ffion. I'm a creative director in Slam Media and executive producer on a Deis, and I was kind of a part of it from concept to screen. And we have a clip. I wonder if you've seen it before.
Dau ddeis yn troelli, 3 tîm yn chwysu, achos un jackpot sydd i ddathlu.
Ti eisiau gwneud rock, paper, scissors?
Sdim fi gyda ni golli dim ond i ennill, nhw e?
Ac fel unrhyw gêm sy'n dibynnu ar dafliad y deis, ychydig bach o lwc.
Mae'n rhaid ni fod yn anifir, mae'n iawn.
Na ni?
Cywir!
Game face on.
Ond a fydd y deis yn neis. Mae'n amser i ni daflu'r deis.
Magadiru. I should also say, the Deis is to be seen. I was watching it the other night on S4C on the iPlayer, and I watched more than I meant to watch, so that's a ringing endorsement. Right, let's get into this, because the clock is ticking. I'd like to start with yourself, Darren, and something I picked up on that was written in the intro here about centre of prime time, and also, is there a market for these family shiny floor shows?
I presume so, but I don't pretend to know everything in terms of scheduling, and my thing is a good idea is a good idea, and if it's lucky enough to find its right home, then it'll work. Most ideas don't work. Most ideas don't find their right home, but when they do, that's when it can really come together. But you hear all this talk of, terrestrial television's over, streamers are over, and then something comes along and bucks that trend, and whatever the next big thing is, it's not going to look anything like The Traitors, because The Traitors doesn't look anything like a talent show. So there'll be lots of derivative versions of shows like The Traitors, and I don't mean that in a snooty way. I'd happily make them. But there's, I just can't predict what's next, or what the big thing is, or where the current home for stuff is.
So there's formats are taken in, international formats are taken in, but there's plenty of companies who come up with their original formats. And Ffion, you can talk a bit about this, because you touched upon that with the Dicey Dice, and with Slam Media, you were involved in, from the very concept up to taking it onto screen. Can you maybe, I don't know how you do that in a short space of time, but that process and the challenges involved in that?
I mean, I'll put the short version together, but we started, I suppose, it's an idea from a staff member in Slam. He's an editor, Gavin Cox, and he's got a brilliant, brilliant mind. And it actually started with Richard Osman, but not directly. He said a quote once that a quiz is really important for a channel's identity, because it's a reliable, returnable, low cost, I suppose. And we kind of grabbed on at that and challenged the office to kind of come up with a quiz, you know, not thinking much more of it. And Gavin Cox, his father used to design the games in fruit machines. So kind of games that, you know, are built to bring you back and to hook you in and stuff like that. So he lost his father a couple of years previous, and this kind of sparked, I don't know, to kind of look at the legacy of his father. So he really took this to heart. And he brought back this unbelievable game. He'd built it on Excel. We played it in the office, and it was built, he used like the little frustration kind of dance of the dice in a globe. And it was all built around a dice, and it has kind of its saying, the dice has its saying in every round, and it kind of goes with the trajectory of each round, but not with, not gambling kind of thing, avoids that very much so. But what kind of came obvious is that his personal, we as a team wanted to do it for him. And I think maybe this format came from that kind of personal journey. And then over a period of 3 years, we were lucky enough to have Beth Angach in Esparec, who's a commissioner who loves quizzes. So she kind of developed it with us. And then, lo and behold, we had a commission. And then I think in actually the Celtic Media Festival last year, TG Cara kind of got on board, and suddenly we were doing it for 2 broadcasters. And unbelievable journey. Yeah.
And Rebecca, that's where you come in, because Tyrone Productions were the producers for TG Cahir.
Correct.
And were you exec producer on this?
Yes.
What's the relationship once you get a format from another company? Then how does that work? Are you, there's the format, do what you will, or is there still like somebody looking over your shoulder?
Terrible. That's why there's someone between myself and Ffion. No, it was from the get-go. It was really great. Like the guys in Slam happened to be particularly sound anyway. But it's funny with the story of Gavin's dad, like that went into your kind of format Bible, and it really stood out in the Bible. So even when we were making our version, that kind of stays with you, that story or that reason. But the relationship between Slam, the relationship between TG Cahir and S4C anyway is so strong. And then I think that trickled down. I think because you guys were doing your first run, we essentially travelled to Cardiff for the filming as well. So we brought 60 Irish-speaking contestants, flew them over from across the country, so and we put them up. One commissioning editor recently told me that should have been the show. They all flew over. Essentially, you left your seat, we jumped in, and yeah, because we were all learning together, and it was still kind of little kinks were being ironed out. It worked really well, I think.
Kieran, we'll talk about maybe you mentioned spin-offs there, and I know you've been involved in spin-offs, which is an interesting place to take it. But costs. Is it expensive? They're called shiny floors. You saw the studio, and it looks like it. You know, it's cost a pretty penny. Budgets are tight.
It is pretty tight.
Yeah.
Everything's expensive. But on a studio, you have fixed costs, so you know when you hire the studio and everything else, you know what you're going to do. So you can there's economies of scale when you shoot in the studio. You can make more than one show a day, which means you can make it work for you. But it's not cheap, but nothing's cheap. It's at least controllable, which is nice. You turn up on a Monday, whatever that is, and you're in that little box until you finish shooting your show, then you leave at the other end, and you're not like worrying about the weather or airplanes flying overhead or...
But there is also repeatability with these programs, isn't there? There's a long life, as it were.
Yeah, and then there's format sales, and if you create some IP and you sell it around the world, it's great. Or even your tape sells around the world. People want to watch your shows, which is great. So it's a great business to be in, and it's family viewing, so it hits that kind of sweet spot in the demo. But yeah, they're not cheap, but you can.
You don't want them to be cheap.
Mm. They need to look great.
You don't want them to be cheap, but yeah.
Yeah, that was me. It's like a guy came to me a while ago and he said, "I've got a great idea. And the good news is, it'll cost fuck all to make." I went, I don't want to make it. We want to make shows that, have chunky budgets. I don't want to sound arrogant. We make lots of shows that don't, and you struggle with your budget, and you have all those struggles. But, not being cheap isn't a bad thing.
One of the other things that shouts out to me when this discussion, and I don't know your opinion on this, Darren, is there's nostalgia and innovation and that balance. And a lot of the shows I mentioned at the top there, Gladiators, Weakest Link, Wants to Be a Millionaire, they're now coming back. And Is there a new audience for that? Is it? I don't know. Some people might look down and say, "Oh, it's a bit lazy. You're just going back to the old things." And how do you make it for a new audience?
No big show is lazy. There's no lazy telly. But the bringing shows back is a great trick because, you know, it means something to an audience of a certain age. And if it's a good enough thing, you bring in a new audience to it. So, you know, Gladiators is the perfect idea. You know, that meant so much to people who are now in their 30s and 40s and have kids. And then their kids saw it and loved it. So bringing it back makes it a media event. It gets the coverage. You get a few snooty comments and stuff like that. But, you know, if the central idea is good enough and it's well produced enough, it then finds a whole new audience. Because, you know, good ideas, they can kind of have a trajectory and then come back. I mean, it's like in Ireland or things like, we don't have the legacy of previously massive formats to bring back. You know, like obviously we could bring back UK shows for an Irish version, but there's no great demand to bring back Rapid Roulette or Where in the World, and given the lack of reaction to both those names, probably a good reason that we're not bringing them back, you know, so we don't have that legacy.
Well, you were involved yourself, Kieran, in bringing back Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with Mr. Jeremy Clarkson a few years ago. What's it like to work on a show like that and bring it back to a new audience? Is there a chance to tinker with it, or it worked the first time? Why would you change anything?
You sort of have to. Well, we were given the opportunity to play with it a little bit. Millionaire is definitely the best format ever invented by anybody ever, and it's sold around the world a million zillion times. Our thing was not to ruin it by thinking we could make it better, because you can't make it better. It's genuinely perfect. All we did was put in a new lifeline, ask the host, because we thought if you have someone like Jeremy Clarkson who has opinions on everything, getting him to talk, having him sit there quietly is maybe a waste of, you know, this talent. So that was good. And then the thing the channel was interested in was Millionaire had gotten to a point where it was who wants to win £32,000 and leave. And so the challenge was, how do you stop people getting to that safety net and going? And then what we did was we took away that safety net and made it that you could put it anywhere you wanted, which encouraged gambling. So that's all we did. And then it's exactly as it always was. And it's perfect. But there's a nervousness to taking something like that you grew up watching, that you love, and then putting it back out that you don't, you know, destroy it. But it's a brilliant show to make. And it's, interestingly, you know, as Darren says, it's got the original audience, which is all the old people like myself who loved it when it first came out, but it skews really young for ITV, which is, we didn't expect that when we first made it, but it's a really young facing show. It's great.
And also on that programme where we're talking about nostalgia and innovation and maybe coming up with new formats, a spin-off from that called The Hot Seat, which was on for ITV. Is that an avenue you can see maybe expanding for shiny floor formats and that kind of thing?
It has to be a good shiny floor show to begin with. It has to have something in it that warrants, you know, the spin-off. We didn't invent Hot Seat, but I like to tell everybody we did because it's so good. But we launched it. It was away in Australia first. We launched it in the UK, and it's been a big hit for the channel. And it's like multiplayer Millionaire. It's brilliant. I'm sick we didn't think of it, but it's brilliant. And we shoot it in the same studio, and we'll be able to make it work. And there's economies of scale. You know, you set it all up in one big run, so it's fun.
So this is the Celtic Media Festival. There's lots of languages to be heard when everyone's out having their coffee and such and so forth, which is great to hear. Bring in a shiny floor format to, I don't want to use the word minority language, but whether it's Gaelic or Gaelic or Welsh or whatever it is. What are the challenges involved in that, do you think, Rebecca? And do you have to tailor it to the language, as it were, and to that culture?
Yeah, I think so. I think there are definitely creative considerations. Like the TG Ceathair audience doesn't want a translation of Undesh. They want their version of Undesh, and I think that's huge. I think quizzes lend themselves really well to that because you can tailor your questions. And we found, it was obviously our first run at it, we had looked at percentages, you know, how much should be the general pub quiz, global general knowledge, and how much should be more local. And actually, for Series 2, which has been recommissioned, I think we'll be leaning even more into the local. It worked so well because it gives you a sense of ownership. It just makes it feel more authentic. So I think it's hugely important that it feels like it's ours. And that was one of the things as well. There was the pride of a shiny floor format. When we were in Cardiff, the reaction of the participants when you walk onto a floor and, you know, everything's up and running, you know, there was a kind of an emotional reaction. And I remember someone walking in and going, God, it's Linga Shaw, like this is ours. It's so impressive. And I think, I think that there are considerations, but I think that it's worth it for the... I think of, you know, when you were mentioning bringing stuff back, like I think we talk about soaps as being a mirror to society. And I think like Shiny Floor is kind of like the disco ball for the for society. And if it's playing 90s music and it's a bit more retro, all the better, you know.
If you lean into local with your format, we started Gogglebox 10 years ago, and the first opening episode, pre the titles, we had the cast watching the Angelas. And that was just a statement of, you know, you're not in Kansas anymore, Doherty. You're here. And again, with Traitors, lent into a lot of language. But, like, it helped the gameplay. Because we 24 players and only 3 of them spoke Irish. So it was a brilliant device in the game. And then we got massive plaudits for our work on behalf of the language. And we were like, yes, that's exactly what we were thinking when we came up with that. You know, so, but it is like, you know, how do you make an international format feel Irish? Put Irish people in it. Set it in an Irish location and have Irish people make it. And it just happens. You know?
And that brings us on, I think it was yourself was mentioning about channel identity, or was it? And, you know, how these things help with that so much. And that comes in with the contestants, who are such an integral part of these Shiny Floor formats. And we saw some examples about how important they are. And you want those characters and those personalities and be invested in them. How easy is it in the different languages? I'll come on to Gaelic in a minute, but in Welsh to get contestants, to get them in. And you've got returning contestants, I think, didn't you?
Yes,
in
So if the first people to go out in round 1, they get logistically nightmare, but an option to come back in the series again, which I think was really important for firm believer in if you're happy off screen, it'll translate to on screen. So the contestant loved their experience. I don't know if yours was the same, but and that kind of opportunity to come back for a second bite of the cherry was brilliant for them, because they were on screen for so short time, just going out on the first round. But for us, we felt like people wanted to compete. They came to us, and casting was quite easy to collect the competitors, but we made sure that we lent into the relationship between the contestants. And I think that's one thing that we got right in the first series, and we'll lead more to in the second series, is the importance of almost, that's the point of difference, is that they play together in round 1 and round 2, and then separate but for the same goal in round 3. And by the time you get to round 3, those relationships that you've learnt about in the previous 2 rounds really come to fruition. So I think that was an important kind of, I don't know if you felt it.
Totally, yeah, you could see that definitely in round 3, where they were siblings, best pals in round 1 and 2, and then the brother's getting it wrong in round 3, and she's like, yeah. But in terms of casting, I mean, casting is always a challenge, but for this, actually, we had a huge, I mean, what a surprise. We were asking people to travel over to Cardiff. You get accommodation and potentially a night out in Cardiff, and we were flooded with students. Like, we had so many students applying. So, yeah, no, and we didn't actually employ that returning of people who were eliminated in round 1 for Series 1, but we're going to do it for Series 2.
Oh, you are.
And just a wee aside to that, it's connected with it, but maybe not specifically. It's about the language, because I was involved in a quiz show called Macdonald, which Bill McLeod, who was with us from BBC Alpa, MG Alpa, insisted I mention. And do you have a thing about confidence in language and people coming onto the programmes and their confidence in speaking in Gaelic or Welsh? Is that a thing for?
Well,
did you find that at all?
I think if you're applying to go on a quiz show, you have to be very confident in your ability to understand the question. So in this particular format, it was all Irish speakers who were able to function at that level. So not in this instance.
So there's formats being created. There's also formats, international formats, being taken in. I don't know if you've got an opinion, Darren, about how that works, because I guess some of the international formats will be big budgets, and maybe you're being asked to make them on a smaller budget?
Yeah, of course, sure. I mean, there's any number of international formats, but there's only any number of slots that we can pitch for, and there's not that many, and they don't open up too often. But, you know, and there is a drive on, which is good, that, you know, from RTE and from Virgin, that they want, you know, original IP. They want, you know, new ideas. And like Kieran said, we'd all love to own a global, massive IP hit. It's a hard market to do that in down south. And, you know, it's very difficult to get a paper idea off the ground anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. And international formats give a degree of comfort to a broadcaster. They get advertisers excited. They get the media excited. But, you know, we do non-international formats as well. We have Phyllis Family, which is about to do season 14. We've a kids show that we're about to do. And actually, we've done a good few things with RTE Kids because they can take bigger creative risks. And you could make, my theory, yet to be proven, I can make a show for RTE Kids. Out of it, you can definitely cut a great sizzle together, have episodes, proof of concept, and then you could pitch that to Netflix for the family version. So we have a show going into production now called Caulca Caulca Boom Boom. And it's a baking show, but they blow up the cake at the end. And the winner is the kid with the cake with the best explosion. Now, that's a silly little idea, being done on an RTE Kids budget, but you cut together the sizzle, and then suddenly, you know, you can imagine that with a Netflix budget. Or I can imagine it with a Netflix budget. Maybe they can't imagine it, but that's where you you try and find different parts of the forest, because in terms of RTE Entertainment and Factual Entertainment, they're brilliant, they're ambitious, they want stuff, but they only have a certain amount of resources and slots. So you do have to find the more creative ways in.
We happen to know someone with a Netflix budget, Kieran. I don't know if you want to tell us about Flinch that you made for Netflix.
Yeah, we made that in, I think, 2017. Yeah, and that was we made that in a barn somewhere in the country. I can't remember where we made it, but it was in the north. We just went to a big giant barn and we just electrocuted and shot and dunked everybody in water. It was brilliant. And it was a Netflix budget. It was their first game show, first proper game show. So we were the first ones to do it, and it was well funded. It was great crack. Yeah.
I think there's a well-being session going on.
Oh my God. I was just saying to Ffion, it was the only person who got injured. I don't know if anybody's seen it. It's as I say, 2017, but it looks dangerous. But the only person who got injured was the St. John's ambulance man. He was allergic to weasels, and he didn't know. You should always know if you're allergic to weasels before you go on a set. I said, you know.
Now, that is a new one, I have to say. We've still got a bit of time, and I'm going to return to the panel. I don't know if there's any questions at this point, if there's any hands you'd like to contribute at all. It's hard to see here. I should be screaming, come on down, but unfortunately we don't have that facility. I don't know if there's a mic available, or if you just want to... It's just this gentleman over here. There we go, this gentleman over here. Just to include you is there.
I just want to know how he discovered he was allergic to weasels.
It's all on camera, so you can see it. Yeah, that was a mad day. That was a totally mad day.
Did the weasel work for Netflix?
The weasel was on a really good rate. When you for Netflix, the money, the animal wrangler was getting paid 2 fortunes.
Got a question from the lady just down in the front here. Thanks.
Hi, thanks for such a great panel. In a former life, I was part of the indie that created Only Connect.
Oh, wow.
It was very much shaped around the character of Victoria's brain, her immense brain, and kind of, if you could kind of turn a human into a format, then it's a good place to start with Victoria Coren Mitchell. So I just thought whether you see formats as purely as the format, or are they shaped in your heads with a particular presenter in mind that would influence how the format unfolds?
Who wants to pick up on that? Yeah.
Well,
thank you.
I think the presenter does turn it into something different. So when we were bringing back Millionaire, we were trying to think about who would be a good host for it, and we were casting the net pretty wide. And it was Wayne Garvey, who's the big boss of Sony, said, do you think Jeremy Clarkson would be good for this? And we suddenly thought, I think he would be very good. But it doesn't feel the same as the Chris Tarrant show. When you have someone like Jeremy Clarkson, it changes it entirely. Same rules, same everything. But you've someone on the hot seat who doesn't care whether you win or lose. You know, he's just like, as long as you entertain me, and he loves to see people take risks and gamble. That's his thing. And if you're not taking risks and gamble, you can see him go, oh, come on. And it works for television. It's very funny. So I think the right host changes the show entirely. And when we brought Blind Date back, I can't remember when we did that. It was with Paul O'Grady for Channel 5 a load of years back. And it was when we got the rights to Blind Date, trying to think, well, who could you bring back to make, who can replace Scylla? Yeah. And it was Paul. And it became like, it was the exact same show, but different, because Paul sort of made it his own. So I think if you find the right host, it changes everything. And that's what gives it creative renewal. Somebody else comes in. It'll be interesting to see what happens on, what do you call it? House of Games. Yeah, I'm really excited.
Of course, yeah. Because Richard Osman's
But Siobhan McSweeney doing Traitors Ireland did such a job for us in instantly differentiating from Claudia, because the cult of Claudia on that show was so huge. And there are so many great presenters in Ireland that could do the job really well, but they would draw instant comparison with Claudia. Whereas in the way that Claudia is in the category of one, so is Siobhan. And it's a very Irish category of one that Siobhan is in. So the moment we announced her, like, we had a good gut feeling. We wanted her and we pushed hard for her. But the reaction to the announcement was the first time we thought, ooh, okay. Because it was a surprise as well. An Irish audience is auto set to groan at any announcement. Oh, they're making Traitors. They're going to make a bollocks of it. Oh, they've got her presenting. It's going to be fucking awful. And suddenly it was like, oh, maybe they're not as thick as we think. Maybe there's a shot that this could be good, you know? So, yeah, the host is massively important.
We had different hosts.
I thought you were going to say we have the same audience as Welsh like that as well.
Yeah. But what you guys had with James, our Evelyn was so different.
Yes.
And I think you could feel like both totally incredible presenters. But I think we felt sometimes, I know Garant used to say to us, the Irish guys need to stop talking so much. Because Evelyn would be kind of nearly like, and tell me, how is your mother doing this? But I think, yeah.
They'd say with fashion, with music, with most things, it's kind of quite cyclical. Is that maybe the case when it comes to the shiny floor formats then, Darren? Do you think it's eventually going to come back around?
Yeah, I mean...
Am I asking you impossible questions? I'm asking you to look into the future.
But it's the same as any genre. You hear, sketch shows are over. And then a great sketch show comes along, and that sketch shows. Same with sitcom. Good ones raise the boat, but it doesn't mean that everything that comes after it is going to be great, But it does, a bad one does make commissioning people nervous. Shows disappear more to do with regime change in channels than, lack of appeal often. It's like something new comes in, something did just okay, but they hadn't, birthed it. Mm-hmm. So it goes.
As a light aside, what was your favourite shiny quiz show when you were growing up? What would you watch, Ffion? What were you kind of addicted to?
Do you know what? Predictable. I'm going to say Gladiators because I sat every Saturday watching that, having tea with the family and watching Gladiators. But I think the Shiny Floor Show kind of genre, it's great in bridging generations, and you actually sit down as a family and you watch one screen. And in this day and age, people still do that. And, the revivals of Gladiators and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is amazing. But what's the comeback of tomorrow, I suppose? What's the ones that we're doing now that'll come back? And not that I'm saying a Dace is going to be that one, hopefully, but it's an interesting kind of, if you think about what's the Gladiators now kind of thing.
What about yourself, Kieran? We might be giving away ages and generations here, especially me when I mentioned mine, but what were you, when you grew up, what were you kind of watching?
I mean, I was obsessed by Millionaire. I wasn't particularly young when it was out, but I was obsessed by it, and everybody used to race home to watch it when it was stripped.
Must-watch TV.
Live, and you wanted to see it. But I think the quiz I remember loving the most would have been Going for Gold.
Oh, yeah.
Because it meant you got a day off school. If you were watching that, you weren't in
Henry
school,
Kelly.
So to watch it, and the theme tune and stuff. So, quiz and entertainment shows are the channel identifying. You don't get it in documentaries. You don't get it on... you do get it slightly on soaps, but I think entertainment shows are what a channel builds its reputation around. And so, as family, when you watch those things, they stay with you. So.
Which is an interesting point, because you might think quiz shows, shiny floor shows are almost, I don't mean this throwaway, because a lot of work goes into them between formats and producing them and everything else. But maybe people don't realise, when you say it's the identity of the channel, that's a pretty big thing.
There's very few plaudits for shiny floor shows, unless you get a big one, like Millionaire in its day was the biggest thing since sliced bread. Gladiators is huge. It started huge and it's come back to being huge. But mostly you're making these shows. Like Only Connect is an amazing show and it does win awards, but no one's standing up going, isn't that the best show on TV? The Chase is brilliant. All those shows you're thinking, House of Games is brilliant.
If you make a documentary that doesn't work, you're called brave. If you make an entertainment show that doesn't work, you're a dickhead. You know what I mean? And you did it deliberately to annoy the audience.
Everybody thinks it's easy to make. That's the problem. You make a documentary and you go, oh my God, you really challenged people. And it was challenging and it was no good. It challenged me like it. But if you make people think quiz and entertainment is easy, but with those shows, you're inventing everything from scratch. You're not telling the story that exists. You're having to make it all up, making up rules. And the rules have to work and they have to create different stories. And you can't just, the rules can't create the same ending every time. So it's like build your own adventure, but you have to be in control of it. So it doesn't get enough praise.
And drama is obviously, the one that everybody, gets all the plaudits. Mm-hmm. They know their ending when they turn up. We don't know the ending of our show. I'd love to know what happens at the end when I turn up on the shoot, but it'll be which mammy gets up a ramp or, who gets murdered. Or it'd be much easier to know what happens in the end. at the start. So I think our stuff's much harder for me. Yeah.
No one stands around a dinner party going, "Did you watch Lynch?" When they electrocuted that guy,
No.
but they will talk about the most recent dramas.
Yeah.
You don't get the.
We should make it all in Danish.
Exactly.
Everybody will love us.
Dark, slow-paced, yeah.
This
What about
kind of feels like we're like, tell us we're great.
Mummy loves daddy. Mummy loves daddy. Mummy loves daddy.
What about yourself, Rebecca? What memories do you have of watching kind of these
So
shows?
I didn't have multi-channel growing up in Cork, so I was loving Blackboard Jungle, the lyrics board, but I did creep down to my granny's house and Risque watched Blind Date, loved it.
Risque, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Mr. Smith?
I used to love things like the Late Breakfast Show, Swap Shop, all that Noel Edmonds stuff, House Party, obviously, Awkwardly, Jim will fix it. And then in terms of quizzes, Blockbusters, which used to be on every day after school.
Bizarrely, I know the daughter of the man who wrote the Blockbusters theme tune. She lives in the Isle of Lewis, which is a weird
name drop it again.
I don't have a weasel allergy, so I had to get in there. I had to get in there somewhere. Mine was 3-2-1, if anyone remembers.
Oh, yeah.
3-2-1 with Ted Rogers.
Ted Rogers, yeah.
Nobody knew what was happening. It was just impossible to work
Game for a
out.
Laugh was good as well.
Yeah.
I like pranking.
Yeah, absolutely. The question here is, where is factual entertainment heading? As we draw just to the end of this discussion, Ffion, where are we going then, do you think? It's quite a general question, I know, but...
I mean, like I said, the comeback. Is it a comeback? Did it ever go away? I'm not sure if it did. Just, we're just naming some ones that we liked before and it's come back. So I think there'll always be a part for, like a place for Shiny Floor shows. I probably wish maybe Esperarec did more of them because they used to do a lot more in the Welsh language. They used to have, I don't know, who's out there, like Turio and, they're quite risque. It was.
And why don't they? Is it simply money or is it...
Oh, I don't know. You'd have to ask the commissions out
here?
there. But I suspect, like, Turio was before kind of, it was an antique show and you'd buy over the phone kind of thing, and that was, and it was live and it felt risky at the time, So I don't know. Hopefully there's things like that could come back. But yeah, I certainly hope that it's got, it's here to stay and forevermore.
What do you think, Kieran?
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is go on YouTube and look at what the creators on YouTube are doing. They're just ripping off all the old formats. So it just tells you there's life in them. They think they've discovered game shows and quiz shows. And when you look at it, they're sort of doing The Chase, they're doing Millionaire, they're doing Dating Game. But it's just all the stuff we were doing in the 70s and 80s and 90s and 2000s. So I think the channels need to have... It's hard to be brave in the current economic climate, but there needs to be a certain amount of curiosity about what might work and a sense of bravery about giving it a good chance to bet in before you go, oh, it's not...
Why is it hard to be brave, just to pick up on that?
Because there's less money.
Yeah.
So
there's more risk, less money.
Right, okay.
You've got less opportunity to be wrong. And if you don't come out the gate immediately with a really strong showing, and it's understandable, it's like, oh God, do we really invest and take another shot at this? But if you look back at the shows that opened years ago, the numbers aren't too dissimilar to the new formats, but they've been on the air 10 years and they build that legacy. So I think if you go to YouTube, you can see all the stuff that we love watching, and those creators think they've invented it, and they're doing it. And they're doing it really well.
Oh, the young people.
I know, I hate them. So I'm optimistic that we can keep moving, but it does require, I think, the broadcasters to have that level of bravery and curiosity about it.
And Rebecca, you mentioned a word earlier on that everybody loves to hear, which is recommissioned, and Daish has been recommissioned for a much longer run as well.
Yeah, we were initially a 10 episode series for Series 1, and we were recommissioned for 22 episodes for Series 2. With 2 celeb specials, which was brilliant. Yeah, we were thrilled, really happy, and really happy to get to work. I'm really happy to get to go to Cardiff again. With even more.
And make that spin-off. Make that spin-off about the contestants going to Cardiff. Yeah. Absolutely. Anything in the pipeline? Anything you want to kind of mention? Although everyone spoke to me earlier on and mentioned things in this, and I can't talk about that. But any you want to touch upon, Darren? Any?
I mentioned Coca Boom Boom.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about Dustin the Turkey.
We're doing an animation with Dustin.
Yeah.
So that is bringing something back. Yeah.
Wow, I'd never heard of such a thing, and then I spent the last 2 days doing more about Dustin the Turkey than I did about preparation for this. But yeah, so that's an animation for that then.
Yeah. And that's a reboot and bringing a character back, and it's doing that thing I talked about earlier, where it's particularly hard for kids departments to make noise and PR and get media exposure. But if you're bringing something back that the media are already aware, if you're bringing back or if you're creating a cartoon and the character from that cartoon can go and do TV and radio interviews, that's very potent for the cartoon. So, I mean, hopefully. But yeah, anything else where... Actually, it's pertinent to coming up here. People here may not know, but kids down the south, when they see a yellow reg, they say yellow reg and they get to hit the person beside them, be it a sibling or a parent or whatever. And Commissioner Mann have announced a shared island round. So we've created a game show called the Yellow Reg Game, which is a studio show, a quiz show on big screens and yellow regs, and you get to thump your sibling every time you see a yellow reg. Will it be backed? I don't know. But we had to, my daughter came up with me today, and we had to stop the game north of Balbriggan because it was getting too busy on the yellow regs.
Any more questions? We've got just a few minutes left at the end here, and it's been quite an interesting discussion of anything about the shiny floors or... Kevin, down the front.
I was just going to ask about acquiring a format. Like, how do you approach Ffion, having known about her format, or is it a case that the channels have heard about it and maybe have asked you to pitch?
Yeah, so in this instance, it was the channels really had spoken, and I think you'd mentioned it was here potentially, was it, that they had spoken?
Yeah, I think I'm correct in saying that it was the Celtic Media Festival last year that both commissioners spoke to one another, and it was already developed for Esparrec in a place where it was nearly, fully commissioned, and then I think, TG Cara Fair Play commissioned it, yeah.
Yeah. So Laura Nichali would be a commissioning editor who we work with. She is here in the room right now, and hi, Laura. So Laura had spoken about. She had put it out. We went for the gig. We had previously done the Irish version of Millionaire. Tyrone had done it before my time. So it was something that we had wanted to do a quiz again. So it came via the broadcasters to us initially. For that specific, for Andesh.
In terms of international formats, it is a question of building relationships with the distributor. You start off by kind of dragging your sorry ass down to MIP, being overwhelmed by everything, getting a few meetings, somehow getting another meeting, maybe optioning something for more money than you should, just so you have something to go to a broadcaster with. And then over time, if you get lucky and you get something up and it's a hit, then distributors see your company as a company that can get shows going. And, but it's, Kaiser's in business 21 years, so it's not quick, it doesn't happen quickly. And there are times when you just think, this is pointless, I'm never going to get into that, I'm never going to get the big shows, I'm never going to get, and it's never the meeting that you really think this will be the one, this can happen. It's always the kind of accidental encounter in the airport, or somebody mentions something in passing. But you have to go through the motions and those meetings where you go to London and you arrive with your luggage and they go, you didn't just come over for this, did you? No. I just happened to be fucking passing Channel 4. I haven't been thinking about this for 3 weeks at all. No, I'm fine, So you learn early to leave your luggage in the hotel before you go to the meeting and be all kind of cool and breezy about it. But it's, it can take a while.
Any more questions at all?
I wouldn't recommend it.
And I think what Darren said about getting to know distributors, we have another format which was commissioned and it will go into production in 2026 for TGCAR. It's a Belgian format that we got through a Dutch distributor. And again, it was kind of meeting the guys, getting to know them, and for them to kind of learn what isn't going to work for a TGCAR audience, and for them to kind of realize, okay, well, I'm not going to talk to you about this because that's not going to work. So it's all about the relationship. And also, if you can make it two-way traffic, if distributors see you as somebody who has a format, then that's a different dynamic. And anything's a format. They asked the head of Fremantle once, "What's the format?" And he said, "It's anything I can sell." He's not wrong entirely. So if you can make it two-way traffic, you're a little bit more interesting to the distributors, but it can be a slog.
Any more questions? I don't know if I meant to hit 45 on the dot. This is my radio background. I'm always looking at the clock, trying to fill. Nope, I don't think there's any more. I'll just thank you then I was really looking forward to this, and you more than delivered. They all lied to me earlier on. They're all saying, "Oh, I've got nothing to say." When they're all saying, "Oh, Darren's got loads to say." So, but thank you for your insight. Yeah, it's been really interesting. So thank you so much. And also, Katrina told me this will be online, the session. They're all being videoed, so you'll be able to watch them again if you want to relive the moment. Oh, all right. We're going to talk contracts after this. But yeah, Míle Tang, and yeah, thank you. Enjoy the rest of the festival and get some lunch.